Hi, this is Corinne Cavender, the Behavioral Health Operations Coordinator at Tri-County Health Network. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Matters Access Show here on Kodo. We are hosting these shows on the third Wednesday of every month on Kodo to highlight resources and programs available in our community around mental health. Interviews will be posted to our website at tchnetwork.org following the broadcast. We're excited to have you join us today. Thank you to the Kodo News Department and Ben Kerr for making this possible. For this segment of Mental Health Matters, we are joined by Maria and Valentina. Thank you both for being here. And will you guys introduce yourselves, say your full names, where you work, and how long you've been in the county?
Hi, I'm Valentina Estrella. I am the Cultural Navigator for San Miguel County with Tri-County Health Network. I have been in the county 3 years. Actually, this Friday will be my 3-year anniversary here in Telluride. So it's gone by super quick, but so excited to have been or to have joined the Tri-County team and making strides for radical change in our community.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria Albañil Rangel. I'm the Immigrant Advocacy Coordinator for Tri-County Health Network also. So I moved from North Carolina to Telluride about a year ago, I think next Tuesday, now that we're talking about anniversaries, Valentina. My anniversary is next Tuesday. I'll be here 1 full year. And most of my time I work with them, I've been working with the immigrant community here in San Miguel County. I help with the Immigration Legal Services program that we offer here at Tri-County Health Network. And I can also, I've also done a lot of work on outreach and education around immigration related services and issues, really.
Amazing, and happy almost anniversary to you both. I'm excited to have you here with me today. So let's get into why you're both here. So I wanted to talk to you both about BIPOC Mental Health Month. So can you guys explain to me what BIPOC Mental Health Month is and why it's important?
Nice. So BIPOC really stands for the Black, Indigenous People of Color Mental Health Awareness Month, right? It was really recognized all after an incredible and amazing woman, B.B. Moore Campbell. She was a Black woman who was really a renowned author and just true advocate for the BIPOC mental health community. BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month really looks to promote the public awareness around just mental health issues, specifically among the communities of color, right? It really looks to see what the piece of intersectionality really looks like, not only the unique challenges and stigmas around the BIPOC community, but also just the different identities within that. For example, not just being, for example, me, right? I am Mexican, I identify as Latinx, right? So I am a Latina woman. So with that, not only do I have certain challenges and just, barriers to accessing mental health or just, talking about mental health as a Latin person, a Latina person, but I'm a woman. And on top of that, let's think about somebody around their immigration status, what that would look like for a undocumented Latina woman, right? Or a able-bodied white woman, right? Or male. So I think BIPOC just really brings in that opportunity for us to dive deep into what those experiences may look like.
Yeah, and just to piggyback along that, I also identify as a Latina woman. Little background story on me, I actually grew up undocumented. And so for me, when we talk about BIPOC mental health, I want to touch on that there's like 2 components to that. There's currently the life that you have assimilated to, or the culture that you are assimilating to, and then having your native culture or maybe your even native home state kind of in the background of, and it's this inner conflict always of, what's culturally appropriate here, what's not, and really the internalization of a lot of feelings and emotions of feeling like you don't fit in, or acting like detached because you don't want to be sat out, or just a lot of different components that play into it. And some of the times it seemed sort of as punitive as well, like if you were able to verbalize some of those emotions, because it's like it seem as like, well, you made the decision to migrate to this country, and then you made your bed, now lie in it. But there's really that component that a lot of individuals won't understand until it's actually lived, why people take that great risk to migrate here, and why it's so important.
Thank you both for highlighting that. Sounds like there's a lot of different layers to, I mean, I know there's a lot of different layers to mental health in general. So this month kind of really gets to highlight a specific segment of, the greater mental health kind of fight that we're all in. So thank you both for explaining that. So at this point, I kind of want to know what mental health resources are currently available to BIPOC individuals.
Nice. And I think a big piece that Valentina and I were talking about prior to this was just recognizing that there is limited resources, right? That there is large gaps and there's several disparities around accessing adequate resources that they be linguistically appropriate, right? In the language of somebody's heart, in the way that they are able to express themselves and be able to have those conversations, but also culturally appropriate, having a bicultural therapist, right? Because I think that's just critical, that's super key. I know that for me, once I was able to access certain mental health services, it was so different to be able to have somebody who was a Latina woman, who I would talk about all these societal pressures and the messages that I was receiving, and being able to just blatantly label that was oppression, right? Just coming out and saying, I understand that. I didn't have to sit there and have to explain why it made me feel that way, or why it was considered, why it was a heavier burden, right? Or even just talking about different aspects of growing up in a Mexican household and what it meant for a single young woman to leave my home. It was something huge, right? It was almost offensive to my parents to be, well, what did we do? Why do you have to leave home, right? It was this idea of this therapist understood where I was coming from, understood the importance of family, understood the influence of family in my specific culture. Having to explain that, because I think as BIPOC individuals, we go through life never being able to turn off what we are, turn off who we are, right? And we shouldn't have to. But we always are in this state of like having to explain and having to defend, almost being cross-examined for our experiences. So being in a situation where we can have those linguistically appropriate, culturally appropriate services, it makes the world of a difference. So I think that for here, at least in Seminole County, with Tri-County Health Network, we have the teletherapy program, which I have helped several of my clients access. And I know that thanks to things like the Good Neighbor Fund, or even the Seminole County, the behavioral health funds that we have, they've made it accessible and it has been affordable. But it doesn't answer all the questions, right? It's a great start. However, most of my clients, I would spend 2 hours just on an appointment of trying to say, this is how you turn the computer on. This is how you log on. This is how you put in your password, right? So virtual isn't the most effective form. What that means, is it better just to be in person? And just, it's a good start, but I think that we still need a lot more work to be done to be able to have these not only, appropriate culturally, linguistically, but also just affordable and just all in general accessible.
Valentina, can I ask you what mental health or what still needs to be done for mental health services and resources to be more equitable?
I think just echoing here what Maria said about the culturally appropriate, linguistically appropriate availability of therapists. I think that the Behavioral Health Solutions panel has made wonderful strides in trying to reach equitable access. I know that an interpreter program is in the works, but as Maria mentioned, these clients aren't really familiar with a virtual platform. And then the idea of I'm already disclosing something so personal to me, and then I have to disclose it to 2 individuals at once is a little bit more taxing. However, I think that we are aware of these barriers, and that's the first step, to keep continuing to make strides for equitable access.
Both of you kind of touched on cultural differences. So I want to focus my next question on what are some cultural differences between some groups of people regarding mental health conversations?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to touch again on the stigmas. The fact that it's oftentimes can be seen as punitive, as like you did this to yourself. The fear of disseminating information, that vulnerability that plays into when disclosing something so personal, or and also just tying in both vulnerable and fear of like, I'm going to be sought out, I'm going to be singled out, and or just drawing more attention to yourself as like, I don't really fit in here kind of thing.
Really, I would like to put in just a quote from B.B. Moore, and I think that it just really highlights not only the layers, but just this identity or this idea of just being even more out of the norm or outside of what that is, the dominant culture, right? So B.B. Moore Campbell said, while everyone, all colors, everyone is affected by stigma, no one wants to say, I'm not in control of my mind. No one wants to say the person I love is not in control of their mind. But people of color really don't want to say it because we already feel stigmatized by virtue of skin color, or even eye shape or accent. And we don't want any more reason for anyone to say, you're not good enough. And that's so powerful because just the idea of stigma in general applies to everyone, and that's so strong. But when you talk about the differences between the BIPOC community, already having this internalized idea, this oppressive message of you don't belong, you don't fit in, that'd be from all the microaggressions that we may face or just the messages sent out by society. That's so powerful because we don't want to add on necessarily just another piece, something else, right? And then on top of that too, when we talk specifically about the undocumented population or just the immigrant community in general, there's this idea that Valentina was touching on, just the fear of being sought out and having to out yourself from your immigration status, because that's such a tremendous fear in general. That is just across, even in the state or even in our community, I often have conversations with our community, our immigrant community, who are terrified of just sharing that, yes, they are undocumented, because of fear of what that information would mean or whose hands would end up on, right? I know growing up, I had 2 undocumented parents, and that was one of the biggest pieces as to why I didn't seek out mental health services until I was 25 years old. It wasn't until then that I was like, oh, it's finally safe enough. I'm far away from my parents to wherever this information ends up, it can't be traced back to them. And it has a tremendous effect. I think that you have to keep all those pieces in mind when talking about how to really sell the idea and how to market the idea of mental health, how to, just demystify the whole process and what it means, what therapy means, right? And how it can actually be helpful. So I think that's crucial when we talk about stigma, talking about not fitting into the dominant culture. And just again, echoing the need for the bicultural, bilingual, and affordable just mental health services.
And as a white woman, that quote you just shared is super powerful, because I am, a really big advocate for mental health, but have never thought about that lens before. I've only ever thought about the stigma of talking about mental health and not the stigma that different people might face when having to talk about that too, on top of just already what's difficult about having those conversations. So thank you for highlighting that and enlightening us with that. I have time for one more question, and kind of going off what I was just saying is, how can white people address the inequities and be allies in the fight for mental health care?
So I think first here is recognizing your power. If you are an individual who is a leader within an organization, or if you are in an organization that serves the community, educating yourself, having that aspect of culture humility. There's an awareness over an assumption component. You can also donate to behavioral health initiatives or Good Neighbor Fund, and tying it back into that education piece, you can take diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings, mental health first aid, safe talk, and recognizing who are those community leaders, who has already established trust within the community and using that as, your mobilizer.
No, that's great. And I think I just want to briefly just wrap it up by saying, just don't forget that the personal work is so important and it's critical, right? There's so much power that we as individuals may hold in whatever roles that we may carry. It's important that we recognize our own implicit biases, what that may mean, right? And then just going back again, I think we need to be a community who deliberately wants to understand everybody else's experiences, right? Even if it's not my experience, just recognizing that experiences are different, right? And what that may mean. Because I think if we open ourselves and we come at it in this courageous attitude of, yes, like I'm prepared, I want to get educated, I want to read books, I want to hear podcasts, I want to, listen to interviews like these, I want to talk to different community members just to be enlightened in the different experiences. I think that's going to really help us start to not only talk about the issues, but really start bringing forth actual, radical change. So thank you.
Thank you both, Maria and Valentina, for joining us today. If you want to learn more about BIPOC Mental Health Month, please visit www.nhanational.org/BIPOC-mental-health-month. Join us on August 18th for our next edition of Mental Health Matters. If you are interested in learning more about our behavioral health programs at Tri-County Health Network or have any ideas for a future show, please email us at info@tchnetwork.org or call our offices at 970-708-7096.